Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. I'm Mike Zanker. Join me and other amazing guests as we explore and discover better, hope-filled perspectives on biblical texts and difficult themes. Prepare to expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, as well as Eastside Church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Still Growing in Grace. Today's going to be a little different. It's going to be even less scripted, mostly because the topics we've just been covering have been really real and good. But we, as a group here, we've not been together for a couple of weeks because just life has been crazy, and each of us have most of us have had some difficult weeks and some pretty serious difficulties. And we kind of said, what are we going to talk about? And maybe, I think Bill talked about I think it was Bill. No, it was Richard, talked about being okay in silence. And yet, where do we find hope, or how can we be authentic in our faith in really tough circumstances? Because people watch us. And as a leader or speaker, when we do this kind of stuff, we're not perfect. We don't have it figured out, and we're still learning. And I don't know, maybe I want people to have permission that you don't have to have your stuff figured out. And how can we find hope in these things? And some of us need some direction. We need, okay, what can I do? Give me something to do right now that'll help me find the peace that I know is real, but I'm not feeling it right now. All right. That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, we were talking off camera about it, but I think there's a comfort to be found in silence and in quiet meditation, and sort of I've been going through. I bet you everyone listening to this and all of us are going through certain trials, fiery trials of this, that, or the other, and I've been in a place in some areas of my life where I'm just basically my head's just above water in certain things, and not always above water. My nose is going.
But don't you know the Lord? Don't you?
But
isn't He your anchor?
I found a relaxed state over the last few weeks that I can't really explain where it came from, other than that I was desperate and I was what's the word, frantic. I really felt a sense of frantic energy within me that was distracting me and panicking, and I tell you, every day, we wake up with two narratives that are coming at us. One is the narrative of the Lord, and the other is the narrative of appearances. And those appearances are trying to choke out the word, choke out the life in us. And I know that I've just really been impressed with Jesus's repeated teachings about take no thought, don't go there, and we talked about this before, but the word for idolatry means to worship appearances, to serve appearances. And I think when we have a family member that's in a lot of pain or a lot of anguish, or we ourselves are, scenarios, our minds just repeat those scenarios over and over again. The dread of the day, what's going to happen, the worst is going to happen. And I don't know, I can't even tell you what's caused the peace that I found. Heather's the one that pointed out to me. She said, something's happened to you over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been in a big trial and some other things going on, and I've just had a peace, even though I'm really in a storm. I'm, or at least a circumstantial storm. But it's there's something to which narrative are we going to buy into for the day, and it's really not even so much. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that term, play it by ear. That's a pretty common term, play it by ear. I'm beginning to think, man, this whole thing is about playing it by ear every day, in every situation, playing it by ear, just hearing the Lord, listening for the Lord. Maybe not even hearing Him, but just listening. I'm not sure that just listening for the Lord is a form of hearing. There may be stuff in these storms where we don't actually we don't actually hear any articulated thing. But if we stay silent and in our silence we listen, then that in itself is a balm, that brings some sort of a peace to us and stability. So I can't put this in any 3-point thing. I can just tell you there's been a needed and all I can do is be thankful. I mean, I've had things and sometimes just being thankful for when the nose bobs above water, and you just get a little bit of a beachhead on the thing, and being thankful for that, and not being like charismatically up and down Yahoo thankful, but just quietly thankful, softly thankful. I just praise the Lord. He's found it's like Elijah listening for him. He's found in those quiet whispers that come in the cave, not in the earthquakes. We may be surrounded by earthquakes, but we hear him in just in the quietness of our spirit is kind of what I've been experiencing.
Well, I got up to the congregation last week or the week before. This is all because I'm just my family's currently in a situation where it's not the death. We're not experiencing the death, but in a sense, we're experiencing like the death of a dream and an idea for the moment. And there's a lot of loss with it. Yeah. There's a lot of embarrassment with it because the accuser is right there speaking to you what you could have done different, what didn't you do right. There's all these emotions. So I got up and said, after the congregation knew we were going through something, I said, I'm okay. I want everybody to know that I'm okay, but it sucks. I'm okay, but it really sucks. And, I don't know who said it, but sometimes you have to just embrace the suck.
I wrote that down.
Did you?
I did. So, I was going to say the same exact thing.
Wow. I heard one time an actor who was going out of an addiction problem, and he said sometimes, I think it was Mel Gibson who told him, you sometimes you just have to hug the cactus.
Wow.
And it's kind of, it hurts, but it's the situation that you're in. And it's okay. One of the things I appreciate so much about the Psalms is that there is the lamenting that takes place. I mean, there's a whole book called Lamentations in the Old Testament, which is just Jeremiah saying, this really sucks. And
we don't talk about that much.
No, we don't. We don't. And because we've in Christianity, particularly in the church world, it's almost like, what's wrong with you if you're not? We start the service with praise and worship. Yep. I told our congregation, what if we ever started with just reading one of the laments where David's just ticked off and relate to more than likely half the congregation? Yeah. And allow them to come in and then hear David express thanks.
Well, you can't do that because that's being honest.
Well, yeah, that's true. But, we find ourselves in this liminal space with a situation that has started and we don't know how it's going to end. I don't know when it's going to end. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know when it's going to turn out. And it's just this patient endurance of
long suffering is actually the better word for patience, right?
Isn't it though? I mean, it's really is. It says it. And for me at this point in time, I am consistently talking to myself, reminding myself of the Lord's presence, because sometimes when you're embracing the suck, you don't see it. And one of the things that I struggle with is that my mindset can go to the cynical and the bad side of it, and then it's like a flood of negativity. And so I've just been, saying thank you to God, even when for the certain things. And I don't think joy brings gratitude. My experience is that gratitude brings joy. And so we're just saying thank you. What we found is God speaking to us through numerous people. speaking into us and loving us with his love. And so, for those out there listening to this that are going through something, embrace the suck. This is where our endurance and our patience, and, like Richard said, there's the whisper of the presence of the Lord to give us strength. And not to be too simplistic with this, but I have to remind myself what I see in front of me is not all there is. There is things working. God's working here. He's working in my son's life. And, I have to hang on to the fact that I know God's working, and we walk by faith. Amen. Not by sight. And we don't judge another person based on what we see according to the flesh. And I try not to judge every circumstance just based on the flesh, because there is a spiritual work going on behind. And that's what I encourage myself.
Amen.
Did you ever hear that nothing ever occurs to God?
Yeah.
Right? Nothing ever occurs. Like, oh, that didn't occur to me. Oh, I didn't see that coming.
I like that.
Right?
Never surprised.
You just hit on something really important that I needed to hear. Because yielding, like almost as we've talked about the open hand theology with people, with whatever's going on, but even the circumstance, having an open hand instead of grabbing on to the situation, trying to hang on to it and control it, and control how our loved ones react to it too, because we're trying to protect our spouses or our other family members. You can't. And to have the open hand, say, Father, put in or take out whatever needs to go in. I can't control this, but I'm going to have to trust you with this. And my hand is open, called trust.
Amen.
That's not easy.
No.
Go ahead. I can relate to what you were saying, Fred, about the negative thoughts that come in and say, you should have done this, you should have done that. And I've definitely been through that, and I go through it, fairly often. One thing that I can say is I don't embracing it sounds to me like I want it. And I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't want it in my life. I don't want what I'm going through in my life. And so I can't, embrace, like embracing the cactus. Somebody said, I can't embrace the cactus. I don't want the cactus in my life. And maybe it's a different term, live with it or get used to it or whatever. But I find it hard to want it, to embrace it. In that sense.
I don't think embracing means to want. Embracing is face the reality that is in front of you. Don't over spiritualize it. Don't fix it. Embrace it for what it is. Otherwise, you're not going to be thinking straight, right? You're going to be thinking of ways to fix, because we're all fixers.
If you become fixated on that problem, that's going to mess you up badly. Yeah, so I definitely understand that.
I heard that the embrace is more of a, let's stop lying about it and be honest with what is in front of us and say, this is the path I'm not alone on.
Right.
That's how I
there's a denial that can happen.
When you say embrace, it's you're denying the denial.
Right.
Right. Well, and all of this is so perfectly modeled in our faith that we all celebrate, or that we all at least believe to be true. Jesus is the icon who embraced the suck. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, right?
Endure the shame.
The shame, right? We have a co-suffering God that isn't separate from the suck, but that has come from the perfection of heaven into the quagmire of our suck, right? And has absolutely got his hands filthy dirty, washing our feet in the middle of it. And I think that's what's so unique about Jesus as the exact representation of God. And I'm reminded of the image of the cross that you don't see very often, but you see Jesus hanging on the cross and you see the Father holding him. and that the Father was one with Christ in that moment. And to Fred's point, we don't always see the goodness in that moment. And even Jesus says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why have you forsaken me? That Jesus takes on this mind of humanity, this Adamic identity in that moment. And he even has trouble in the midst of that suffering, recognizing the Father's still with them. And he's quoting Psalms 22, and I think we're all familiar with that. And the Father had not abandoned him, but had heard his cries for help and had never left him. And I think, to know that this thing we celebrate, Christianity, this following of Jesus, is completely unique in an idea of the divine creator embracing the suck as one of us. There's nothing like that in any other faith structure that has ever been conceived by at least people.
Can I say something on Randy's point, though? Because I think he raises a very, very good point about, I think about when Jesus goes back to Nazareth, and I always get Martha and Mary confused. It's my weak spot. But one of the two of them, Jesus tells, did I not tell you if you would only believe? They're all boohooing. They've all given up. And of course, I know one thing embracing it doesn't mean giving up. And yet but he was looking for a faith connection there for somebody, and to not give up. Martha or Mary, whichever one it was, did they not give up?
The hope.
And then he weeps when they don't know the day of their visitation. That they're grieving, and he makes mourners leave the room when he's about to raise the dead girl or whatever, because they had given up. And maybe embracing means not giving up, facing the evil, but not giving up on it. But on the other hand, not
turning our back on it.
Yeah, not turning our back on it, and not cringing at it, and not bending the knee to it, that this is going to control my thought life. But that takes some noble silence, that in the spite of what appears to not be happening, that we believe in a good God. Meister Eckhart, he said that we must learn to penetrate all things and find God there. So maybe hugging the cactus is penetrating it with the peace of God, penetrating it, listening for, keeping our ears open, and just seeking to listen to the Lord. I've heard this metaphor before, but it's a great one, just about you're surfing, you're out on your surfboard, and you're waiting for a wave to catch on the thing. You don't know right now, there's not a wave, you're not being moved by a wave, but you see waves are there, you sense waves are there, and the Lord's waves are coming, and then we go to the wave, and then we ride it to shore. And what that looks like, whether we get what we want, whether everything happens, that's not even part of it, but we're looking for a wave to ride, a current that we can put our peace and our hope on. And maybe that's hugging the board, and just letting it carry us, knowing the Lord's carrying us to the best place, hastening to the highest available good. I love that term, hastening to the highest available good, given all the circumstances and the free wills and all this cluster muck that we all have to deal with, that the Lord is still guiding us and taking us to a good place. With it, we're just, if it's just survival, it'll be glorious survival and peaceful survival, and it'll be the Lord, that has done it. So I do, Randy, I appreciate you saying that, because that's really a good thing for us to blend with this.
Well, you had Paul sitting in prison, right? And he's writing Philippians, and I don't want to minimize anything, but prisons in today's world are, I would say, a lot better situations than prisons 2,000 years ago in the Middle East. Those prisons were bad. Like they didn't take care of people. You were shackled to a wall in your own filth, kind of thing. And Paul writes in Philippians 4, verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all, the Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, noble, right, whatever is pure, lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Whatever you have learned or received from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the peace of God will be with you. And I think that's defining embracing the suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And uh, some at least strands, if you will, of our faith, almost you're not allowed to have any struggle. You're not allowed to have a moment of, yeah, I love the Lord and I praise the Lord, but at this moment, it just doesn't feel good. And so I think what I take from embracing this is just facing it, not in some kind of denial, not acting like it's not a problem, saying Christian cliches that are, I don't really mean, and so that I'm not authentically, facing this, and I trust that I can reach the point where I'll rejoice, in all things. But it's a journey for me. It's a journey where I take 2 steps forward and a step back and a couple of back and 1 forward. And but that's kind of, the idea for me. And but I can tell you, in the last 2 days, especially, just an inner strength to just be at a level that's a little better than it was.
So what did you do to make that happen for you? Now, okay, you see where I'm going with this, right?
I do. And I wrote this down for me anyway, that this is something, the whole thing is something that comes inside out. Rivers of living water flow out of us. It's not something I've got to do to accomplish. This, what I just mentioned, I didn't do anything. It happened inside of me because it's outside of me. It wasn't me. It's the spirit within me that brought a certain strength. And I think that is what he did for Fred, he will do for absolutely all. I can assure you. And so this isn't something that, there's a formula.
Did I don't remember, did we mention the play it by ear? Did I mention that after the recording started or before? I don't remember. Well, we were talking earlier at some point about this play it by ear, that just listening for the Lord, you're not hearing a specific thing. Can I tell you something that I've heard from the Lord repeated times when I've been in situations like this? I've never shared this with anybody, but I'll sit there and I'll be feeling sorry for myself, or feeling like crying, or feeling like this, or feeling like that. And I hear him pat me on the back and just say, "Buddy, you just need to catch your breath." And he says it to me in the sweetest tone. Just catch your breath, and whenever I hear that, I think about, after when we used to put our hands on our hips and bend over because we couldn't breathe, because of football or track or whatever.
Or put on your socks.
But just applying that. Let the Lord, playing it by ear, it's just listening for him, and let him. He may send that word to you. He may send a word like it to you, but he wants you to catch your breath. He understands. And that's, what Bill said. I mean, he went through that. How many times did he have to catch his breath? He had to go pray, and he had to go here and go here to catch his breath. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it sounded like to me that Fred caught his breath. He'd been tumulted left and right and in the middle on this thing, and you suddenly caught your breath. And maybe but I've never shared that with anybody, because I know, God talks to you that way. Yeah, he does. He quickens it. He quickens that phrase to me. And it's brought me a lot of comfort, and just telling me I don't have to do anything right now. I don't have to conclude anything. I just need to catch my breath, and it comes.
I like it just came from within, because we've been programmed to find formulas. We've preached formulas. If you've been in Bible college, they teach you how to preach. You have preaching courses. You have your 10 points. Oh, here, buy this book. This will help you know what to do if you follow it. But we're not comfortable enough to just be silent and let the voice from within out. I don't know who was. Did one of you guys say last time that if we've been so busy all day, and then finally the Lord spoke to you late at night, and it's only because, why'd you tell me this now? Because it's the only time you were silent and resting.
That's good. That's
I don't know. I
good.
thought it was one of you guys who said that. I forget. But
Yeah, and don't you think God speaks to us all differently based on our own life experience and our personalities and our
As unique as our fingerprints.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So how much time do we have?
1 minute, 1.5 minutes.
Okay, maybe not enough time, but I was going to ask a question.
Bring it in, and then we'll start the next one with this.
Okay, all right. About, I don't know, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, I was going through a lot. And, a lot of things were happening, and the solution, or if you could call it that, was to get on medicine, to get on head medicine. And what do you guys think of that? I mean, I'm not waiting on the Holy Spirit. I'm not waiting. It was like, I need help here. And that was my solution.
I grew up in a system that said no, but I think there's value to it.
Yeah.
We just said it. Every solution is going to be unique to the individual need. And I think when we get into a point that we start judging others for whatever God presents as the solution, I mean, that's just it's just not a really healthy place to be.
And God can certainly use medication, right?
Absolutely.
However, we got people in our church world that say, well, you lack of faith person, you don't need that medicine because the Lord is all you need. And how can you have such little faith? Like, that's the kind of crap that.
Well, I tell you one thing, if our children were hurting, we would approve of anything that made them feel better.
Bingo.
Right.
Bingo.
And he wants us to have relief, natural relief. He wants us to have, every relief on every level. And if something like that brings relief, he's for it. I don't have a doubt in my mind. Now, if it has, adverse things, that's something to at least discern about. But no, the concept itself is absolutely good.
Let's come back to it on the
I
next
got a good way to kick that off next time. So
good.
Cool.
All right, here we go. Thanks again for watching this episode. We'll catch you for part 2 of this conversation. Thanks for watching. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. If this show's been an encouragement to you, consider making a donation today. For our Canadian link, visit growingingrace.ca, and for our USA link, visit eschurch.com. Your donation will help us continue spreading really good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.